my channel. I'm glad you found your way here. My name's Chloe. I've been living in China for almost 2 years now, and I wanted to start off with a chit chat about why I moved to China. I have a complicated story to tell about my reasons for and my journey to moving countries. I actually started learning Mandarin at age 16, just before my 17th birthday, because of food. I am a huge foodie and I had just tried steam buns for the first time in my life and I loved them. I was like, wow, where do they eat this every day? I want to be there. And I did a quick Google search and China! Woo! I was young, but to me that was the spark that lit the fire. So I started to learn Mandarin as a hobby. My thought process at the time was, if I want to go there and I want to eat steam buns every day, you should probably learn the language. So I did. And I had dabbled with language learning without really any success for a couple of years. I was that girl on Duolingo on the bus ride home, trying to learn French and Spanish and brush up on German for those GCSEs. I don't remember anything, to be honest. After a couple of weeks of learning on my own through apps, I found an app that let me connect with language learning partners, and I had never had any online social media apps before this. I wasn't on Tumblr, I wasn't on Twitter or anything, so to me it was all very new and fun and exciting. I was making friends and communicating, really practicing my Mandarin by using the language to talk to people and learning things that I wouldn't have been learning on those apps that I was using. By the way, if you're interested in the apps I use to learn Mandarin, leave me a comment and I will possibly make a future video about it. So in the UK, you apply for university when you're 17. I was studying A-level business, maths and chemistry, and I really wanted to continue business at university. I wasn't sure what career I wanted to go into, like many business students, but I just thought that business would be a really good foundation, a good base for me and my future career. I intentionally applied for courses where studying abroad was compulsory so that I would have to go. I was so scared that I would chicken out and never make it, never go for it if I didn't choose something where going was a non-option. When I started uni, I had kept on with learning Mandarin and actually making friends who I could communicate with in Mandarin as well. So I still had that drive to go. And in my second year, I applied to study abroad and chose 3 universities. China was my first choice, and I also applied to Singapore and Malaysia as well. I was 19, I was a full-time uni student. I was working in a supermarket, doing agency jobs on the side like catering. I paid for my flight by myself, which I was so happy about. I left on the 22nd of August 2019. I had booked a coach to the airport, bought a luggage set off Groupon, and I was ready to go and explore the world. At the time, I was in a long distance relationship with my boyfriend, who's now my husband. He lived a couple of cities away from Shanghai, where I was going to be studying. He actually met me on my first day there and helped me to find an apartment and get settled really. I really loved it in Shanghai. It was also my first time living alone, away from home, no roommates, just me, and I felt so free and so lucky to be there. My boyfriend would come to Shanghai every weekend and we'd go out to eat and explore the city, and it was just so much fun. And don't get me wrong, there were good and bad times, and I was sometimes really lonely. It was really difficult to contact my family. Sometimes the internet would just not work for me, and it was a struggle sometimes, but for the most part I had a really great experience. Yeah, uni was going really well. I was learning so much Mandarin and I was really happy. That year in December, I had traveled to Changzhou, which is the city I live in now, and at that time my boyfriend lived there, so I went to spend the Christmas holidays with him. We went on a holiday to Guilin as well. I remember when I started back at uni after the new year, it was just for 2 weeks, and then we started the Chinese New Year holidays. By that time, news of the outbreak was spreading, but it didn't start getting serious until after my birthday. So I'd gone to Changzhou to spend the holidays with my boyfriend. We were going to his hometown in Suzhou, and I was going to meet his family. We were able to travel to Suzhou, but the pandemic had started and social distancing rules started to apply. So we weren't able to meet up with the rest of his family. We just had to stay in our house, in our bubble. I spent 8 days with them, and then I went back to Shanghai and back to university. By February 2020, we were in lockdown. I'd made it back to Shanghai. My boyfriend's company suspended work and he was working from home, and he's an electrical technician, so his job is very hands-on, and they just had him attending meetings online and training meetings. My uni switched to online learning as well, so we had a lot of free time. Even though we were going through a pandemic, we would go out and cycle around Shanghai. We would get takeout from the restaurants we wanted to eat at because they were all shut. We were just living in a bubble, really. My school had raised concerns of me returning to the UK early, and I told them to give me some time to think about it. I think shortly after that time, my mum had called me and she was crying. She begged me to come back. So I let my school know that I would be coming back early, and they booked my flight home for me. I left on February 23rd, 2020, the day after my boyfriend's birthday, and I didn't see him again for 2.5 years. So fast forward, it's May 2021. I've just finished my final essays and assignments for university, and I'm graduating in September. I started looking for jobs, mainly teaching jobs in China. The pandemic was still kicking my ass. The borders were not open yet, but I was determined that I would be flying back. I was still in a long distance relationship with my boyfriend. It was really difficult, but we always had the hope that I would be back. I got a few job offers and I was trying to decide which city I wanted to go to, but it was really difficult because most offers were just for Guangzhou and Shenzhen at that time because they didn't need PU letters in order for me to go. On December 23rd, 2021, I got an offer for a job in Beijing and I decided to take it. I had done everything I needed to do by the middle of January, and by March 2022, I was at my wit's end. Nothing was getting me closer to going to China because the borders were shut and it was the most frustrating time of my life. I was so close to going back, to seeing my boyfriend again, to living the life that I wanted to be living, and there was just delay after delay after delay. In April 2021, my recruitment agent convinced me that the only way I could get to China sooner would be by flying to Serbia to get a vaccine that was recognized in China. By doing this, it would allow me to go to China without a PU letter. So I did. And I know it's like the most random thing ever, but that is what impatience and desperation does to you. I got my first vaccine, and then on the morning of my flight to Serbia for the second vaccine, China released news that we no longer needed PU letters to fly there. And I was like, wow, I've just wasted so much money doing this. By this time, it was early June, and in all of that time, I have been checking flights and keeping an eye on prices, and there was still a lot of restrictions and there were 0 direct flights from the UK, so it made it a lot harder. I booked a connecting flight from London to Abu Dhabi to Beijing, and it cost me £4,000. I was all set to go. I had started all my preparations to leave, and then my flight was cancelled. At this point, I was ready to give up. I had invested so much into me actually getting to China, so much time, so much energy, so much money, so much mental space with 0 payoff. And I still had no clue when I'd actually be getting to China. It was just a time filled with so much uncertainty, and the last of my hope was really hanging on by a thread. I had spent all of my money on the flight and I was waiting for the refund, and during that time my boyfriend booked a flight for me that was connecting in Brussels in August. and my recruitment agent was not happy. I needed 2 COVID tests within 48 hours, but I only realised about a week before the flight that I needed to get a COVID test done in Brussels 48 hours before the flight. So I booked myself a Eurostar to Brussels. I got a COVID test done on the 5th of August and I stayed the night in a hotel at the airport. I paid extra for a rapid test on the morning of my flight, and I collected my 2 test results for my night flight on August 6th. I finally made it to China on the 7th of August. I did a 10-day quarantine, and then there were some issues with getting me this code that I needed to fly. So I had a connecting flight from Xi'an to Beijing, and on August 19th I finally was able to fly there and I arrived in Beijing. I worked in a bilingual kindergarten in Beijing for 1 year, and then we decided to move cities, and now we live in Changzhou. I have way more that I can talk about: my recruitment agent horror story, racist principles, a school with no ink and paper. So if you're interested, please leave a comment and let me know what you want to know about. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye, see you next time.